They were adored as gods and goddesses of Golden Age Hollywood, faces that defined beauty, romance, and stardom. Their smiles shone on screen, their voices filled theaters, and their lives seemed to be one endless celebration. But beneath the glittering lights and champagne toasts was a darker truth. Many of these stars were drowning in alcohol, their brilliance slowly consumed by the very substance that fueled their parties. Hollywood in the 1930s to 1970s was built on excess. Studio executives hid scandals, reporters looked the other way, and bottles flowed at every gathering. For some, drinking was a way to cope with fame. For others, it became the very thing that destroyed their careers, their bodies, and, ultimately, their lives. In this video, we'll reveal 25 legendary stars destroyed by alcohol addiction, tragic downfalls caught on camera, stories of beauty ruined, and final moments that shocked the world. But before we dive in, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments. It's always amazing to see how far these untold Hollywood stories travel. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Welcome to Vintage Hollywood Files, where we uncover the beauty, the tragedy, and the shadows behind the spotlight. Number 1. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was more than just a movie star. She was the embodiment of Hollywood glamour. With her violet eyes, flawless beauty, and undeniable screen presence, she became one of the most photographed women of the 20th century. From Cleopatra to Cat on a hot tin roof, Taylor exuded the confidence of a woman who had it all. Yet beneath the diamonds, the designer gowns, and the headlines was a reality far darker. Alcohol and prescription drugs were slowly destroying her body and reputation. Taylor's personal life was as famous as her career. Married 8 times, she lived in a whirlwind of passion, scandal, and heartbreak. Her most notorious relationship was with Richard Burton, a love affair as intoxicating as it was toxic. Together, they fueled each other's addictions. Friends remembered dinners that ended with the couple passing out drunk, only to wake up and start the cycle again. The tabloids loved it. 2 of the most beautiful people in the world locked in battles of love and liquor. But the reality was tragic. By the 1970s, Elizabeth Taylor's struggles were impossible to ignore. Her drinking escalated, and she became reliant on painkillers and sedatives to numb both physical ailments and emotional turmoil. Weight gain, slurred speech, and erratic behavior damaged her once pristine image. She checked herself into the Betty Ford Center in the 1980s, becoming one of the first celebrities to publicly admit to rehab. For many fans, that honesty was groundbreaking. For Taylor, it was survival. Despite the chaos, Elizabeth Taylor never completely lost her spark. She channeled her fame into humanitarian work, especially AIDS activism, becoming a tireless advocate when few dared to speak about the disease. Yet even then, alcohol remained a shadow in her life, resurfacing in moments of weakness. When she passed away in 2011 at the age of 79, the world remembered a legend. But behind the glamorous facade was a woman who had fought her demons in full public view, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. Her beauty and talent were unmatched, but her life proved that no amount of fame can shield anyone from the grip of addiction. Do you think Elizabeth Taylor's openness about rehab helped change how the world views addiction? Or was it too late to save her own legacy from the damage? Number 2. Richard Burton. Richard Burton was the very definition of a Golden Age Hollywood leading man. Deep voice, piercing eyes, and a magnetic stage presence that made audiences believe he could conquer the world. Born in Wales, Burton rose from poverty to become one of the most respected Shakespearean actors of his generation before dazzling Hollywood in classics like Cleopatra and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. On screen, he looked invincible, a man whose talent and charisma seemed limitless. But behind the camera, another story was unfolding, one in which alcohol was both his comfort and his curse. Burton was known for drinking like few others in Hollywood's history. Vodka was his weapon of choice, and he could put away as much as 3 bottles a day. Colleagues often described him as brilliant in the morning and incoherent by night. Even when he was sober, he carried the aura of a man wrestling demons. Producers often dreaded hiring him, not because he lacked talent, he was extraordinary, but because his drinking made every project a gamble. The public was fascinated by his turbulent romance with Elizabeth Taylor. Their fiery love story was splashed across tabloids, fueled by alcohol-soaked arguments and reconciliations. Friends recalled dinners where the pair could demolish cases of wine in a single sitting, their passion inseparable from their intoxication. Hollywood sold it as glamour, but insiders whispered it was tragedy in real time. Burton's health deteriorated rapidly. His liver bore the scars of decades of heavy drinking, and doctors repeatedly warned him to stop. He didn't. In 1984, while staying in Switzerland, Richard Burton suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, his body finally giving out after years of abuse. He was just 58 years old. His funeral drew global attention, a reminder of how beloved he remained despite his downfall. Yet the irony was cruel. A man whose voice had shaken theaters and whose face defined an era had been silenced not by age or obscurity, but by a bottle. Richard Burton's story is a powerful reminder that addiction doesn't care about talent, wealth, or fame. It consumes all equally, leaving behind only broken legacies and what-ifs. Do you think Burton's brilliance excused his drinking, or did the bottle steal from us the greatest performances he never lived to give? Drop your thoughts below. Number 3. William Holden. William Holden was one of the brightest leading men of Golden Age Hollywood, a golden boy with rugged good looks and effortless charm. He rose to stardom with Sunset Boulevard, 1950, and solidified his legacy with Stalag 17, for which he won the Academy Award. To the public, Holden seemed unstoppable, a man who had it all: talent, fame, money, and charisma. Yet behind the camera, alcohol was eroding everything he had built. Holden's drinking began as social, a way to fit in with Hollywood's party culture. But by the 1960s, his dependence was evident. Friends and co-stars recalled him showing up on set smelling of liquor, his once sharp energy dulled by hangovers. His face, once boyishly handsome, grew weathered, and his behavior more erratic. Directors tolerated him because of his undeniable star power, but insiders whispered that alcohol was stealing his edge. As the years went on, Holden's addiction only deepened. He was twice arrested for drunk driving, and his relationships crumbled under the weight of his alcoholism. Even his romance with actress Stephanie Powers could not save him. She later admitted that while she loved him, she could never compete with the bottle. The most tragic part of Holden's story is how it ended. In November 1981, after an evening of heavy drinking, Holden fell and struck his head in his Santa Monica apartment. Too intoxicated to call for help, he bled to death alone. His body was not discovered for several days. The handsome Oscar winner who once commanded the screen had died a lonely, avoidable death at 63. Holden's passing shocked Hollywood, not only because of the circumstances, but because it symbolized the cruel irony of fame. A man who had entertained millions died in silence, undone not by scandal or obscurity, but by alcohol. His story remains a sobering reminder that no amount of awards or acclaim can protect someone from addiction. For all his talent and charm, William Holden's downfall was as human and as heartbreaking as it gets. Do you think Holden's tragic end could have been prevented if Hollywood had taken addiction more seriously? Or was he always destined to be another victim of the bottle? Number 4. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was the swashbuckling hero of the silver screen, the man who leapt across chandeliers, dueled with swords, and swept women off their feet in the adventures of Robin Hood. To audiences of Golden Age Hollywood, Flynn embodied charm, danger, and adventure. But off-screen, he lived even wilder than the characters he played. His life became a storm of alcohol, scandal, and excess that consumed him long before his time. Flynn's drinking was legendary. Colleagues remembered him starting his day with champagne, moving on to whiskey by afternoon, and ending with bottles of rum by night. He boasted of his tolerance, claiming alcohol sharpened rather than dulled him. But his body told another story. On set, he was often late, hungover, and careless. Directors worked around his binges because his name guaranteed ticket sales, but the cost was clear. His performances grew erratic, and his once flawless looks began to fade. His private life mirrored his drinking. Flynn's reputation as a womanizer became tabloid fodder, often scandalizing the very studio trying to protect his image. Alcohol fueled his recklessness, leading to bar fights, arrests, and failed marriages. Yet the public remained enthralled, unable to separate the real man from the romantic hero on screen. By his 40s, the toll of decades of drinking was visible. His once athletic body grew bloated, his handsome features ravaged by hard living. Doctors warned him repeatedly to slow down, but Flynn dismissed the advice with bravado. In truth, his health was crumbling. In 1959, at only 50 years old, Errol Flynn died of a massive heart attack while traveling in Vancouver. The autopsy revealed the damage of years of heavy drinking, cirrhosis of the liver, hardened arteries, and internal organs aged far beyond his years. The dashing Robin Hood of Hollywood had lived fast, burned brightly, and left nothing but ashes. Flynn's downfall remains one of the most infamous cautionary tales of the Golden Age. A man who had everything, looks, fame, wealth, yet traded it all for a bottle. Do you think Flynn's wild, reckless life made him a legend worth remembering? Or did alcohol destroy the very hero audiences adored? Number 5. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was the very definition of a rule breaker in Golden Age Hollywood. With her throaty voice, razor-sharp wit, and devil-may-care attitude, she dazzled audiences on stage and screen. In films like Lifeboat, 1944, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, she showed off both her talent and her defiance. She insisted on wearing no underwear during filming, just to scandalize the crew. Bankhead was magnetic, outrageous, and unforgettable. But behind the humor and bravado lay a darker truth. She was drinking herself into an early grave. Tallulah's life was one long party. She chain-smoked more than 100 cigarettes a day, washed down with endless cocktails. Friends remembered afternoons that began with gin before lunch and ended with whiskey until dawn. She seemed to thrive on chaos, bragging about her vices in interviews, as if daring Hollywood to disown her. For a time, the industry tolerated her excess because her personality was larger than life. But by the 1950s, the consequences of her lifestyle were undeniable. Her once glamorous beauty gave way to gaunt features and a raspy cough that worsened each year. Producers hesitated to hire her, knowing she might show up late, intoxicated, or not at all. Still, Bankhead relished her notoriety, quipping that she would rather be shocking than forgotten. Her health, however, could not keep up with her defiance. Decades of drinking and smoking left her body ravaged. She developed emphysema, pneumonia, and cirrhosis of the liver, all while refusing to give up her habits. By the time of her death in 1968, at age 66, Tallulah Bankhead had become a shadow of her former self, her once dazzling voice reduced to a whisper, her body frail and broken. Yet even in her decline, she remained a legend of sorts, a woman who lived exactly as she pleased, no matter the cost. Her downfall was tragic, but her spirit remained unbowed, reminding us that addiction can destroy the body even when the personality burns brightly to the end. Do you think Tallulah's outrageous lifestyle was a symbol of freedom in an oppressive era? Or just another example of how alcohol and excess leave nothing but ruin? And there you have it, the tragic stories of 5 legends of Golden Age Hollywood whose lives were slowly destroyed by alcohol. Richard Burton, whose talent was unmatched, but whose bottle was never empty. Elizabeth Taylor, a goddess who admitted her struggles to the world. William Holden, a man who won Hollywood's highest prize, yet died alone, undone by liquor. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckler who lived and drank like there was no tomorrow. And Tallulah Bankhead, the wild spirit who laughed at the rules until alcohol and cigarettes took her last breath. Each of them once embodied glamour, passion, and fame, but their stories reveal the darker reality beneath the glitter. Alcohol was more than a party accessory. It was a silent killer, tolerated by the studios and even romanticized by the public until it finally claimed the stars themselves. Their downfalls remind us that addiction is not a weakness of character, but a disease that doesn't care about beauty, wealth, or fame. And while the Hollywood machine loved to celebrate their brilliance, it was far less willing to save them from their demons. Which of these 5 stories hit you the hardest? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Vintage Hollywood Files, where we uncover the beauty, the tragedy, and the shadows behind the spotlight.